Welcome to the Keen on Yoga podcast, bringing you the stories of many people who in various ways are attempting to walk the path of yoga. Our intention is to inspire your own practice and commitment to yoga beyond the mat and in all areas of life. We consider this an offering, a service to the community and labour of love. If you feel inclined, any donations are appreciated. Just visit our page and click the donate button at www.keenonyoga.co.uk/podcast. I hope you enjoy the show. Today's guest on the Keen on Yoga podcast is Magnus Fridh. Magnus grew up in a remote area of southern Sweden, discovering meditation in his teenage years when his parents, having sponsored a Tibetan refugee, finally, after completing his university education, came to meet his adoptive Swedish family. Magnus, as a restless teenager, was amazed by his contact with the Tibetan culture, steeped as it is in Tibetan Buddhism. He was immediately captivated and made his way through academic studies in Indology, specializing in Tibetan language and culture. He's a long-term meditation practitioner and has really been put meditation to the test to cope with difficult life challenges around the health of his daughter, born with spinal issues. Magnus is one of the founders of the Mindfulness app, and the app has been widely popular and translated into 13 languages. He's also the author of 2 books. His latest book just released, The Art of Stillness in a Noisy World. A fantastic and characteristically down-to-earth and compassionate companion to the incorporation of meditation and its aims of peace into our everyday life. He regularly teaches mindfulness, meditation, as well as Ashtanga yoga in Stockholm, Sweden. So welcome, Magnus, to the Keen on Yoga podcast.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Lovely to have you. So, interestingly, today you're fundamentally a meditation teacher. How did you get? Can you just tell us a little bit of your background of how you got into meditation? That'd be wonderful to start with. Yeah.
Yes, it goes a long way back actually in my life, because I was I'm grown up in the south of Sweden, and ever since my first memories, my mother coincidentally she became a sponsor she supported a Tibetan child, a Tibetan boy.
Okay.
Who was in an exile village in the northern India, in Uttar Pradesh, up in Missouri.
Yeah.
It's a bit south from Dharamsala. And she was very engaged in her sponsorship. She had no further interest in Buddhism or meditation or anything like that.
Yeah.
But coincidentally, she read about the problems in Tibet. You all know that the Chinese have been occupying Tibet since 1950. In 1959, the Dalai Lama left Tibet with a huge amount of Tibetan people. In India, they were very hostile and they welcomed the Tibetan people, and also Nepal did the same thing. And Dalai Lama could set up his exile government in Dharamsala. And during that time, Karma, who is the name of my sponsor brother, his family came to India. So my first memories was like that. You have a remote god brother,
right, yeah.
or sponsor brother.
Yeah.
And his name is Karma, and is a bit older than you. And we will help him until he can manage on his own, until he left the school, and maybe he wants to study in university. And if he wants that, we will support that as well. So, I wasn't, we became pen pals, and we were writing letters when I was 6-7 years old or something like that. Right. And we sent drawings, and he sent me pictures from his school and things like that. And I liked it. Not much more than that at that point. And then I remember I had a few strange memories, but the greedy part of me remember that we had this, Tintin comics laying on a drawer at my home, and they were supposed to be sent to Karma. these Tintin comics. And I tried to convince my father that this is not a good idea. It's better that I keep them for myself. So, but of course, that was the best thing we could do. And then we became quite close friends over mail. And then when I was 16, 17 years old, my mother and father invited Karma to our home. And at that time, he left university and he was very good in English. And they wanted to meet him in personal. And it was quite complicated at that time to invite him to Europe. But after a lot of paper administrations, he finally arrived. And I think that was a very interesting time for me to meet Karma, because I was a very, how shall I put it, very restless teenager, like many are. But at that time, I didn't know that I also had a slight, I know as an adult, I know that I had a diagnosis, ADHD.
Yeah.
Right. And that was very obvious at that time. But I wasn't so, it didn't came out so extrovert for me. Like I was extremely restless, had a lot of anxiety, stress inside. I never truly felt the feeling of being grounded, actually. And of course, I tried alcohol and all things that you try during these years, but I never got very interested. It's just how to say, it's just maximize that feeling. So it was in the wrong direction.
Yeah, right.
But and I also read about some philosophy and Christianity, of course. But I didn't have any faith in a monotheistic God, so it wasn't for me. And when Karma came to my family, it was like all of a sudden I had a very knowledgeable Buddhist in my home that I could discuss all these questions with.
Right, so he was grown up a Buddhist. He was taught in monasteries up there near Dharmasala.
He is not taught in monastery, but I mean, is for all people who know something about Tibetan culture knows that it's so mixed up with religion. Right. So I mean, Dalai Lama has been the head of the Tibetan political life and religious life for so many years, for hundreds of years. Now the situation changed, but at that time he truly was. So Karma brought a lot of books with Dalai Lama, and we had so many interesting talks about logical in religion and not logical things in religion. Where is the how to say the line in between psychology and religion, and back and forth. And I got very attracted to Buddhism, and I got very interested in Tibetan culture. And I got very interested in their destiny that they had been through, and they still are, which is awful. That so few things change, actually. So when he went back home to India again to continue his life, at that time I think he was doing his military training up in Kashmir or something like that. And we took a decision that next step was for me to visit him in India, and he wanted to show me his world, because also this was this was actually 1987 or 6 or 7, so it was way before internet. So it was still quite a distance between the two countries.
Right. Okay. I hadn't realized that you were. How old are you? I didn't realize you were that old.
50. I'm 50.
Wow. Okay, pretty good.
Yeah. It's a long time.
Must be the meditation. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So Amrita Soma.
Yeah.
So I was left there with a massive interest of Buddhist and Tibetan culture, and I was left with my restlessness and with my anxiety and stress. So I slowly start to dive into that meditation context myself. And I remember very clearly that I found some meditation instructions in a book written by Dalai Lama himself. And again, it wasn't very accessible. I remember I went to, I'm raised in a very small city in the southern Sweden. So I went to the local library, and I think there were 4 or 5 books about Buddhism. And it was very, how to say, mystical. It was about people who came into the closed Tibet, and they seen things that were very special, and people that can hold the breath for a very long time, and they can meditate out in the snow and stuff like that. That's interesting, by the way. That's called the Tumo technique, and meditate out in the snow, and that's what Wim Hof is actually doing now. So it comes from the Tibet. But I tried, and the extraordinary thing that happened was that for the first time in my life, when I started to do the simple shamatha, or what they call in Tibet, shine practice, calm abiding meditation, I felt a strong confidence of calmness and security and faith. And I felt that, as they describe in meditation, that there is a gap in between stimuli and response. That became very clear for me from the first meditation sessions. I felt that I am here, and anxiety and restlessness is also here, and I can engage in it, and I can take it as truth. I can make assumptions out of that contact, but I can also just say, hello, restlessness, hello, anxiety. I don't want to deal with you. You can be here in the same room as me, but I accept that. It's a part of me, but it's not the whole part of me.
Yeah, can you just explain the Shine Shamatha meditation technique? Because I think often people are kind of at a loss when they approach meditation. They kind of want to do it, but looking out there myself, for teachers of this, you don't find many people kind of teaching techniques apart from just simply sitting and watching. Is there anything more to this? I mean, we know that Tibetan Buddhism is very complicated in its meditation techniques. But the Shine Shamatha one, how? I mean, that's obviously an entry gateway for meditation technique. How would you describe that? So,
I think that's very well explained. It's an entry. It's a first step, and it's very much what you call today. You call it the secular tradition. You call it mindfulness.
Right.
You have a mind that you maybe think that you control your own mind, that you can restrain it from being here and there and everywhere, but actually it's more like a monkey mind, or what you call in some text. I also read that they talk about an elephant that is on alcohol or anything like that. It's everywhere. Milarepa, the Tibetan yogi, he says it's like a wild horse, and you have to start understand how to ride this horse before you can go further. So that's very much what it's all about. I think it's the image with a lake or the ocean surface is quite good, actually. Before you can see what's beneath the surface, it can't be totally still, but at least you have to understand that you don't have to go with all the waves all the time, that you can stay still. So this is shamatha meditation. And in Shine meditation, I use 2 words now, and maybe we should explain that. Shamatha is a Sanskrit word. Shine is the Tibetan term for this meditation. Shi, it means peace. And ne means like abide or stay in something, to stay in peace. It's simply as that. And they used to say that there are a couple of different techniques for this. Of course, the most obvious technique that we all tried is to stay in our object, to follow our breath from the very start, not only for one time, but for a long time. And that's a learning process. Maybe for a beginner, you can stay just for a couple of seconds, and then you will drawn away to distraction. Another way of doing it is to have inner to visualization, do a visualization, to visualize an object. You can also do like a image of a Buddha. You can also use an outer object, an external object, to have a statue or something that you watch.
Right.
And you can also use a technique of recitate mantra of different kinds. So that's mainly the first part, to tame the mind.
And you're a meditation teacher, so how do you instruct that first of all? Is that the first thing you instruct? The first meditation you instruct?
Well, it is, but I also learned that I experienced that I have to how to say, take some. The path isn't that straight.
Okay, right.
Yeah, because many people, the first obstacle is, of course, to find a good posture. You and me, we are both practitioners of yoga, so for us it's not a problem to sit on the floor with crossed legs. But this is a big obstacle for most people. So you have to work around that, find different ways. How can we modify? How can we deal with this? Can we find some easy yoga postures or breathing exercises that can make it easier for you? Or maybe you have to use some support. For some people, it's better to sit up on a chair, a regular chair.
I don't remember what the Tibetans say about the posture. I mean, sitting on the floor and in lotus. Do they have any particular feelings about that? I mean, nowadays you see a lot of people meditating on chairs. What do you have you had any opinions about that?
No hard opinions. I asked many meditation teachers. When I wrote my first book, I asked a couple of very experienced meditation teachers, and I think the most of them are very calm with this issue. They say, keep the spine straight and keep your hands, your palms down on your thighs.
Right.
That will be fine, and just find a good posture. It's a mind training. So if you get stuck up with this, that I can really do this better than you because I can do a full lotus, or it will just makes it the ego more obstacles and problems with the ego. So I think for me it's very obvious when I'm doing workshops in meditation that you have to work around it. It's not possible. I mean, in a regular meditation class that I have, maybe 2 out of 10 can sit on the floor in a cross leg. The most people, they need something under the buttocks,
right?
At least something. Then most of people can sit on the floor, but they need something under.
Right.
So that's obvious. And some people have to straight out one leg because they have knee problems. And stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, you can meditate on some kind of pain later on, but for a beginner, I think it will be horrible. I think enthusiasm is the best fuel. That's the best thing you can ever have in the beginning of your meditation journey. Otherwise, you won't.
Well, any journey really. I mean, you've got to want to do it to some degrees, right? Like if it's just torture, then why would you bother? And then the mind, also if it's torture, then your mind closes down. You have to somehow, be involved or want to be involved in the experience, right? And so having got them into the room and fairly comfortable, and then I'm just kind of trying to kind of flesh out an experience of how a meditation class would go, with you or maybe with others. What's the next step?
Well, after you found the posture, I used to do it like 3 steps. I'm very clear what I'm aiming for. I want them to gain regular practice, because just as yoga or Ashtanga yoga, I mean that's a great thing about Ashtanga yoga, that you keep on coming back all the time. Some days you are good, sometimes you're bad, sometimes you're just neutral. And after a couple of weeks, you don't even remember if you were good or bad or whatever you were. You just go with this flow or regularity. That's where the magic happens. So what I'm aiming for is to give them this tool in midst of their life, so they can have a regular meditation practice. And I used to split it up to 3 different things. First, the pre-meditation. You can't just jump into meditation from a stressful life situation. Maybe you come from your work, or you have kids at home disturbing you, or something like that. You need to, let's say like this, your session is 15 minutes. The first 2-3 minutes is just about arriving and centering. Maybe you can do a few yoga postures if you have some problems with your back, some twists. You can do 9-fold breathing. There are some famous breathing techniques in the Tibetan Buddhism, and you can just be in stillness and let that restlessness come down, get settled. And the first thing is maybe that you don't even think that you should be calm. You should be kind instead. Think of self-compassion and kindness.
That's interesting.
And kindness is actually...
I was going to suggest that it's not easy to kind of, once one sits down and finds one isn't calm after the first 3 minutes, then there's this tendency to think, this isn't working. Right, and I'll give. So it's fantastic, a nice way to put it.
First of all, that's a big misunderstanding. Everybody coming to meditation, they want something maybe,
right?
But after some time, it's accepting what's there.
Okay,
that you have to change that mindset, because if they come to at least my classes and say, I want to be calm, I want to be happy, I say, well, yes, that might be an effect of this, of course, but there will be other things as well. You have to accept that first. So just sit down. That's why I write so much about stillness in my book. I use that word, to being still with whatever is there. That's, for me, that's very self-compassionate, and there is a lot of acceptance to keep that space, to facilitate that space in yourself first, to see what's there. How can you else work with negative imprints, negative patterns, if you don't even want to be aware to see them? That's the first step. So that's what I call the pre-meditation, just to be with what is.
Okay.
Then you come to the formal meditation. Hopefully that's the biggest piece of these 3 steps. And then you have a very clear technique.
Okay.
And as I told you, the teacher will give you, follow your breathing for 1 breath, or you use a mantra, or you visualize something, or you're just being guided by the teacher, and you stay in the meditation. And also there is something to say there for a beginner, to just say that keep on holding to your meditation object, because you will fail all the time. So I used to say, instead of, your first step is to be aware of when you become distracted, and take the mind home again to the meditation object. That distance is your first task, because you will only stay here for a few seconds, but you can be aware where are you going when you don't want to be still, when you don't want to be in the here and now. Where are you going all the time? You can notice that, and then you can say to yourself, now I'm not doing my task. So with a gentle gesture, come back home again. So it's Kamala Shila, an old Indian philosopher. He uses a very nice metaphor. He says it's like binding a soft thread, very, very thin and soft thread that you're holding, but you never get too tight because it will break. So you just hold it very nice and gently. But every time you get distracted, you can just take it again and come back to to the object.
It strikes me when you first of all you're kind of settling into it, and you're trying to come into a space of acceptance and an awareness. I mean, it is a simplistic question and perhaps is too obvious, but what is the benefit of being aware of these things rather than not being aware?
Well, on this path, we want to understand the anatomy of the mind, who we truly are. I mean, this is a setup of both yoga and yoga tradition, yoga philosophy, and Buddhist traditions to understand the true nature of mind. And if we just connect to things through assumptions, we can't see that, we can't learn that. So we have to break through that as a first step, because otherwise, I mean, it won't give you it won't give you wisdom and clarity. It will just give you an assumption of who you think you are and who does think you are, and so on. And this is something different. But to get closer to that inner nature, that inner stillness, that inner silence, you have to start with to accept what is there at the moment, to see that clearly. So that's why the first step is very good for everyone. I mean, you and me, we have different mind stuff in ourselves, and we can't. I mean, we have to see that I can't see your stuff and you can't see my stuff. But I have to start with that. I have to settle with that. I have to become mature in that, and don't try to be anything else.
That was my next question. So, I know I'm approaching this on a basic level, but when we were entering into meditation, we are trying to come from the start, and so you get that, right? You get that acceptance, right? And you can see more clearly, maybe the back of your head before, and now it's more visceral, more obvious, and we're kind of accepted now that that's a good thing and not a bad thing to try and push that away, right? Because that is generally the kind of attitude that we have. and what do you do with it? Okay, it's there, now it's there, fully present, and all this stuff you didn't want to see before. What do you do with it now?
When you see it's there,
you
learn. I think you learn the first thing. A very important thing, and I see myself as that teenager. It was that I got the experience of impermanence, and impermanence is, most of the time we see impermanence as something negative. In worst scenario, we see that we are going to die. Of course, it's a worst expression of impermanence for a secular person. But we also don't want to lose things we have in terms of material things, and we don't want to lose friends and other things, and we don't want to lose things that is ours. But in terms of impermanence as something positive, what I could feel was that all those things that I thought was me, I thought I am the restless, stressed Magnus, and I will be like this.
Right.
I mean, I was a teenager. I had that introspection. So, but I could experience, no, those things are impermanent, totally impermanent. So they will come and they will take form, and they can be very powerful. But if you don't interfere, interfere is the right word?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. They will be just like any mind stuff. They will lose their power and they will disappear. They might come back in a new form, but in between that, there is something constant, something that is still in the depth of you.
Right.
And that's what the Tibetan, they call it Rigpa. I think, an inner wisdom. The Buddhist, it was called the Buddha nature, they call it. And in yoga tradition, they have many different words for it. But there is something there. And when you connect with that, it's just amazing. I think it's like things like that totally distracted you for decades. In that state, it feels totally feasible to deal with that.
It strikes me that when you mentioned...
Did I answer your question?
That was beautiful. I mean, and I was just kind of thinking in the current times, obviously people are dealing with a lot of impermanence and anxiety, as you mentioned, you know, I mean, what can you suggest in terms of meditation technique, or how are you using that training now to, there's a lot of anxiety with people, right? I mean, is there anything people can do on a daily, on a pragmatic level? I mean, I don't think it's easy to recommend the view that everything is impermanent. That you know, on an immediate level, that sounds to kind of maybe increase anxiety. Just coming straight with that, you know. Well, you know, everything's impermanent anyway.
Well, yes and no, I would say. Right. But I also would say that since impermanence is so crucial in these teachings, mindfulness also comes into a new light. That's why here and now is so important. That's why Buddha was so interested about this nowness, because everything is impermanent. But if you embrace that totally, you know, this vidya avidya, you take things that is impermanent for static. So you think whenever you feel happiness, you want this to remain forever. So all things that makes you feel good, you want it to remain forever. So if you just embrace that, it will be very temporary glimpses of happiness. But Buddha said more like, embrace the full picture, that we are here, things will come, things will go. Also happiness, the temporary happiness will come and go, and we will become sick, we become old, and we certainly will die. If you embrace that, then it's very clear that impermanence will be as a remembrance for you that make this life meaningful. Make every moment meaningful. Don't wait for this quarantine to just count the days for it to stop. Make even those days meaningful. You have that possibility. I totally understand that it's not easy. Not for none of us. But I have an example there where I wrote about that in my first book. I have a daughter that is now she's a big girl. She's 70 years old now, but she's born with a rare diagnosis, and she's spine was when she was born, it was totally wrecked. So she had to undergo, for 10 years, she had to undergo 25 surgeries, quite big surgeries. So our life was quite perfect, and it was very normal. But when she was born, everything was teared apart. We had to spend 10 years in hospital. And we had people working at our home nighttime because she couldn't breathe when she was lying down. So we needed support from the commune. But even at that time, I felt that this stillness of mind is there. And I can identify 100% with me as a father to a daughter that is sick. I can do that, absolutely. But if I fuel that, I can still be that person for all my life. It's my life story. But I can also keep a distance, and instead of choosing to be something else after some time. So it gave me a great relief with the meditation during this time. And that's why I wrote this book also now, because I remember I told myself that, okay, meditation helped you when you were 17 and had some restlessness. It's nothing. Now you have a daughter, you're a father of a daughter, and she will be here for as long as you will live. and does it work now? Now it's tough time. Does it work now? So my book starts when I sit on a sofa at the hospital, and she just underwent her 23rd surgery or something like that. I was totally exhausted, and I was sad, and I felt sorrow, and she had so much pain. So they pumped her with all these morphine and stuff, and finally she fell asleep. And I sat down and meditated, and I thought to myself, "Is this something? It has to work now." and it did, and it did.
Right.
I wouldn't say that I was totally calm. I was totally happy. Nothing like that. But I could cope with the situation.
Right.
So that's why I think.
I think it's people are reluctant to gain some space, it seems, right? Because the disidentification oftentimes feels kind of cold, and it feels like and it's very easy to confuse that with just abnegation, with pulling back and avoiding the situation, right? It seems it would be easy to just kind of not be there, not be present. But yet, how would it look to be present as you were, as a father, but also to have some objectivity? And how does that mindset look? It seems very contradictory to a regular person.
My first, both me and my wife, first feeling in that situation, even if I had a lot of meditation experience from before, I felt trapped. Of course, I felt I was so torn down by I was so tired, and I was so sad, and I felt that we had an older daughter as well, and I felt that I wasn't enough for her, because all the time I had to go to hospital. So I want to be very clear that it wasn't easy. It was really tough, and I really was very close to break totally, actually. So it was very hard. But again, what was your question there? How to keep the
distance between having the kind of immediate reaction, which is a natural reaction, and being able to preserve some sense of yourself. So kind of it's completely crumble, I suppose.
It was. It was a process. It was a process, and it was also during this time where my body was totally. I've been trained just like you, I think, in the Tibetan Buddhist community, and it's a lot of sitting. It's a lot of sitting, and I felt that after these years with my daughter, my body was in such a bad shape, and I started to get back pain when I was doing my meditation. And of course, I could use the techniques in a good way, but at that time I started with Ashtanga yoga. So that was the best thing I ever done, to mix those two, to use the body. And
how does your meditation technique affect the Ashtanga? Is it related?
That's a good question. I just the other day I thought maybe this is weird to do two traditions at the same time. But I love both of them. So what can I do? I know that I've seen around that there are some like me who combine Buddhism and Ashtanga yoga, actually. And
you say that they're different. How would they be then contradictory? Do you find any disparity between your meditation techniques and the Ashtanga?
Well, I don't. If you want to search for it, obvious, you can go very deep philosophically, but also Buddhism is vast. It's been around for a couple of thousand of years, as well as yoga philosophy. So it depends on where you dive down. But obviously, there are some different thoughts about the existence of the I, so to speak. But you don't have to go there as a practitioner day by day. At least I haven't done it so far, but I haven't dived that far, so I have to take a stand for anything. But of course,
meditation practice. Do you feel it as a meditation?
Pardon?
Do you feel the Ashtanga practice as a meditation?
Yes, I do. Yes, I absolutely do that. But I want to be honest. I feel Ashtanga yoga I love it. I totally love it. I thought about it this morning. Even now, after 12 years, I still think it's brilliant. And I miss that part in the meditation tradition at that time. Of course, there are some yogic exercises as well. We have to say that, but I come much deeper in my meditation practice in terms of investigating the mind. That's no doubt. There's no doubt. I get the within same session. I can have this feeling of total stillness, and I can feel that.
So you think the Ashtanga facilitates that with your meditation?
Yeah, it helps me. Yeah, very much. I think it's a great mix. Actually, I think it's great. I think at that time, when I look back at my meditation earlier years, I'm surprised that I wasn't introduced to more movement. I would need that as a person.
I often think it's kind of strange that when you get into Tibetan Buddhism, you're asked to do these kind of rituals to kind of confirm your interest in it, right? The entries, and one of them is a prostrations, which is rather like a sun salutation in a way, right? But it's strange that they don't continue those throughout, right? So people do them and then they complete a certain number of them, but yet then they stop them, which is a shame way, because they could continue them, and then it would be like doing a lot of Surya Namaskara in a way.
But in a way they don't stop them. But as Westerner practitioners, we are introduced to do them 3 times when we enter the room. The room, and is it obvious for people who listen what a prostration is?
Well, I don't know.
You can explain it with good English.
The word prostration means lying down. So I suppose in some respect it's from standing, going to lying down, coming back up again, going. It's like a genuflection, a prostration, or a little bit like a Surya Namaskar. But
and you touch your forehead to the floor.
Yes. Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, for people that do the Ashtanga practice, you often hear that it's a moving meditation, and then, well, the Ashtanga has everything you need in it. We don't need then to meditate. It is the meditation itself. Do you need extra meditations, or is the concentration enough for Ashtanga? What's your experience as a meditation practitioner who then came latterly to Ashtanga?
I mean, now I only talk for myself.
Yeah. Of course,
for me, I need both. And in terms of building these gardens of visualizations that you could do in sitting still meditation that the Tibetan Buddhism offer, where you wish all living beings well, to be healthy and happy, and it's a long ritual where you distance yourself from your ego clinging, your grasping. This is different, of course, from moving all the time, but this is 2 different things. But I think if you dive deeper into the Ashtanga, for sure it's there as well. But it's from the first step in the Tibetan Buddhism, this is very clearly expressed. That this is a practice to not grasping. You come, like you say in Tibetan, dak. You become a dak mepa. Someone. Dak means I, and something that is not connected to this I any longer. It's actually the goal of the practice. And this is you know that you can't even go into the Tibetan culture before they say that compassion is a fundament before we build a house.
2 questions there. Obviously, Tibetan is based on the Mahayana look of so compassion is first and foremost. I know it sounds like a silly question, but what's the why? What's the benefit of compassion? I mean, you have in the Yoga Sutras, for example, a different style, which is rather a bit more like the Hinayana style, the kind of the up and out style, right? So you don't really think about being compassionate. You're not looking like to be a bodhisattva to come back again and help all other beings. You're really just looking to get out of this big mess. By understanding your nature, so what is the benefit, or from your perspective, from this tradition, of the compassion, and perhaps even how that might relate to one's practical experiences of daily life? Because it strikes me as slightly two different things. One is clear nature, realizing one's and the other thing is compassion. So they're slightly two different things, right?
Yeah, that's right. For me, compassion it's obvious how it works. I listened to the radio this morning. Mm-hmm. It was like it was some cultural program, and they talked about research conducted in US. I think they called it noodle statistics, because the graphs looked like noodles. And they followed a work environment, and they somehow measured that people sitting still on the workspace all the time, and people mingle at workspaces. You have met those people who walk around all the time and they talk, and sometimes you start thinking that, oh, what is this guy doing? He should sit down and work. But
no, I never managed to work in an office, so that was because I would be sitting around all the time. So
neither I, but I try to make us more
to appeal to the regular person who has that.
Oh but what they could see at this research was that the people who mingled during the work time, they get more work done.
Right.
That's very interesting. And then they put it in another way, because they also measured people working from home, isolated. And they got also less work done. So the conclusion of this is that we need other people. We need other people to get things done, to be creative. We need other people to become filled with happiness and of being of the feeling of how to say to have your place at this earth. So I think that's very clear with compassion, and more modern research would also say that this oxytocin will be released with compassion, that you will feel cared about and you feel good. So I think it's obvious we're all in this together. And also from my own point of view, I feel that when I do my meditation, when I'm in that state of what we can call Dzogchen or Mahamudra, where we don't have an object anymore. When you don't meditate on an object, you just rest in that open continuum of awareness. There is nothing that can be defined as an I, or I can't identify any special emotions going on there. And I also try to provoke sometimes things that made me feel anger in everyday life. But in that state, I can't even hold that anger for a few seconds. It's impossible. So from that also come the insight that we are very much alike. Behind all those different things we are doing in our daily life. Some people are doing crazy stuff. Other people are not doing crazy stuff. But under that, we are all the same. So that's the insight of compassion, I think. That makes it, that comes to the. I said in the beginning that when I teach beginners in meditation, I teach pre-meditation, and then the formal meditation, and then the most important, the post-meditation.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Life is very easy when you sit in Mahamudra and just nobody's disturbing me, and I think good things about all people. You feel very nice. But then you go home for Christmas to meet your relatives. Are you still compassionate? Are you still happy for them? Can you still listen to them with the mindfulness? And you have to deal with people that don't agree with you and stuff like that. So that's a post-meditation, how you can let this insight from the formal meditation take form in everyday life. That has to happen at some point, I think.
Why? I mean, I'm asking some simplistic questions here. But I mean, there are questions that come up. You're having these good feelings, you're feeling compassionate, and you feel you have a point of view. You feel you ought to be vegetarian. You feel everyone ought to meditate. Everyone ought to be compassionate. And then you go home to family and you experience some rather, unkind behavior towards yourself, your beliefs, your opinions. Why do you need to be compassionate to that?
You have to be compassionate about that. You don't have to tolerate things. That's not what I say.
Okay, right.
If you say something rude to me now, of course I would say I don't want to listen to that. Okay. Maybe we should close this Zoom session now, because this is too much at the moment. Call me that I'm stiff because I'm Swedish or something like that. That's too much. No, but compassionate brings you another perspective. It makes both of us understand that this is not the full you. There are reasons, there are causes and consequences why you are saying like this. Where does it come from? Are you just unkind, or are you afraid of something? Are you scared of something? Maybe you're not. It's something that you yourself been longing for, that I'm doing, but you don't want to meet that within yourself. So you understand that all those imprints that comes out in everyday life have a reason. So that's why I think it's so. Of course, I don't want everyone to meditate. I just want to do my thing, and I want you to find your path, and I want my mother to find her path, and so on. And my daughters have to find their own path. But we are here together. That's the fact, and we should remain like that.
I'm just aware time's ticking on, and I wanted people to have some understanding of the meditation practices that you're doing in Tibetan Buddhism. You kind of touched upon them, and they're very interesting. If you just give a very short oversight of the kind of thing that they entail, because they're quite unique.
Yes. Well, it all starts with, as I understood, it took me quite a long time because I've been so focused on the Tibetan Buddhism. But this is a little bit different in terms of definition of vipassana, or what we call lakdong in Tibetan Buddhism, and the use of vipassana when you go on a silent vipassana retreat, wherever you go. In Tibetan Buddhism, they say shine is a calm abiding, to lakdong vipassana, which is the analytical part, where you more make reflection, contemplations, and analysis of the mind. And at the end of that, you also put the question, who is making this analysis? Who is meditating? Is there anything there? So this is the short setup of it. And regarding my own practice, right now I'm doing, I think you are well aware of that, familiar with that, with a Nundro practice. So I'm doing,
right.
I'm doing 4 preliminary practices. They call it preliminary practice, but actually this is something that can go on for the whole your life. And it's a very Ashtanga-like in a way. Because and it's a very clear structure, and you have to, like you know exactly, like you struggle with primary series, you struggle with Marishasana D, and you feel like you never come further. Something is happening in your mind. You get humble, and you understand your body, you understand your mind, and you understand the ego, how it wants to solve things. But it has to change when you can't solve it, because it's so hard to bind in that posture as a beginner. And Nundro is the same setup. You start with the prostrations, and that's where I am right now. And and it feels nice. You read a text, and you take refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and you do this. Lie down to the floor, and it's quite hard actually for the abdomens and the front side compression of the body. And you feel it's quite nice, but then comes the bad news from the teacher. You have to do this 100,000 times to purify negative imprints in the mind, as a starter, as a soft starter. And when you've done 100,000, they are quite sure that you are not mindfulness all through the 100,000. So they add on 10%. So it's 10,000. You're not mindfulness even in that 10,000. So they add on 10% more. So 111,000 prostration is where you're aiming for before you can go on to the second step, to the next step.
Done those before, I imagine, when you started, right? Because they're the kind of preliminaries to the tradition, right? And I suppose I kind of wanted to provoke you to explain some the very kind of crazy visualizations that are involved in Tibetan Buddhism, because people often aren't aware of this practice, right? The meditation becomes very much a concentration on certain deities, on certain gods, creating a kind of whole mini world inside your head, which you kind of hold as a full visualization and then do things with. It's pretty incredible.
It's pretty incredible and quite difficult, I think, because I've been doing a lot of shamatha and shinne, so I'm more used to these techniques, and so it's a bit of an obstacle. But right now, I'm doing in the tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, I do my deity or my yidam. You call it yidam. It's a meditation deity. Is the Padmasambhava Guru Rinpoche, and is a very the Tibetan. They love those colorful deity illustrations and paintings with a lot of colors, a lot of details, and they can be in deity itself can be surrounded with 100 of other figures and stuff like that, to contribute to the tradition. So you know all those qualities of the deity, you know all those qualities of the yidam. So you meditate and you keep them so clear in your mind. So after some time, there is like no difference in between you and the deity. And you focus, you use your shamatha, your focus that you gained from your mindfulness and shamatha practice to keep the details in the image clear. And then at the end of the meditation session, it resolves, and you feels like from outside in, the image resolves and becomes one with you. You don't become the deity, but the qualities, the Buddha nature that's deity holds becomes a part of you. So it's that are already there within you. That's the point, I think. So it's not like that you can pray to the deity to give you something from outside. It's just more like a psychological, therapeutical game you play to raise and wake this inside yourself. And in that state, you stay in silent meditation and you feel the qualities of the deity.
And just to finalize our interview, we're going back to a very practical level. Magnus, I'm sure I don't say your name correctly, but Magnus has written a new book. It's a fantastic, it's a fantastic new book. I've read it myself. It's very practical. It's very approachable. I really enjoyed it. And in which he recommends many daily tasks. I liked the red lights, the traffic light meditation. Wonderful. I mean, that's kind of different. Obviously, they're more familiar ones that we might be aware of, the kind of washing the dishes meditation, and other such things. Just to bring it down to a kind of daily level, right? We're here right now. We're facing, adverse, difficult times. What can you just give to finalize a couple of little tips if one is feeling anxious in daily life to incorporate those little mindfulness points without actually needing to sit down if we don't feel inclined to do that. Don't have the time.
I have one. I have a few different favorites, but right now when I'm teaching, I used to introduce the students to tactile meditation. So somewhere we focus on. There are different tactile meditations, but one favorite is just to rest your hands. I call it rest your hands because it's very accessible in everyday life. We use our hands to almost everything. You just log into Zoom or making food or or doing yoga, whatever we do. So in the midst of life, just stop the hands and keep them totally still. And with mindfulness, move your full awareness out to your fingers on one hand, or is that easier, or both hands. And just keep your full mindfulness on the details of the hand, on the tingling in the when the blood is rushing, on the weight from every finger, and you can move from one finger to another.
Right.
And you can feel a very magical thing, I think, about mindfulness there, because you normally don't think about your hands. They are just there. But now when you keep it still and just moving your mindfulness out to your hand, the hand will be so clear and all the details will be there without moving it. It's totally still. So that's one very simple. It's explained in the book.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I liked that. Yeah.
But also I think in this time, I think kindness is a way to go. So to be kind to yourself, and kindness can be also just not doing anything. As I said in the beginning, kindness can be just be still with what there is. Maybe you are very sad now because you can't meet your loved ones. Maybe you are worried or afraid. You may be also afraid for your life. Maybe you have some disease that this can be really difficult. If you also have a corona on top of that, it can be life-threatening. So be kind to yourself. Of course, it's okay to feel sorrow. It's okay to feel sad. But it's also okay to be very happy in times when it's hard. So this will come and go and rely on impermanence. But this is...
Yeah, I mean, just as a final thought, it strikes me how it's all too easy when you're embracing to kind of get more involved in it. You know, how would you hold that? So when you say be kind to yourself, there's a question of acceptance. There's a question of accepting what is and acknowledging and in a way embracing what is. But nevertheless, you can easily get caught up in embracing when it flips over to kind of what we would say in English, wallowing, and getting sucked down in what is. How do you how do you keep that from not happening, as it basically?
Not getting stuck to what you...
Yeah. So you're accepting, so you're being kind to yourself. I mean, how do you get from, how do you make sure that you don't end up simply just getting rather drawn into those feelings, right?
That's a good question. I think
dwelling.
It's good to wrap up with that also. That comes from regular practice.
Okay.
That comes from regular practice. It won't happen first time, second time, third time you meditate. No research shows that. You have to have a steady practice, but it's very not you don't have to investigate so much. Actually, you can do meditation 10-15 minutes 3-4 times a week, maybe 3 times a week as a starter. 10 minutes every time. It's not much if you compare it to the time you spend on social media or something. And you do that for about 8 weeks.
Right.
You will start to see results. But meditation is just like learning to play an instrument. It will sound a bit so-so in the beginning, and will be a lot of cluttering in the mind. But after some time, you won't even notice when it happens. Something becomes more and more still, and something deep silence and stillness from within is revealed. And it will come. But you have, I think, everything with quality You have to investigate some time in that. You can't make a nice handstand in Ashtanga yoga. You have to do a lot of practice. You have to go up early and practice. You can't be a chef without making food. You can read 1,000 books about food, but you don't know how it tastes. You have to do mistakes. You have to go through all this. Why should meditation be something else? Of course, it's the same. It's a rule of 10,000 hours, or what they say.
Yeah. But even to carry on, you must experience quite early on, one would hope, some beneficial, positive states, right?
You would do that if you meet a good teacher, or you find something on internet, a guidance, a voice that you like, a setup of words that you you can relate to.
Yeah.
You, of course, if you will feel some state of relaxation and calmness and distance in between yourself, your inner voice, and things that distract you. And that will be a great starting point. And that's what I think is the enthusiasm. You have to meet someone that can give you that feeling. So you get this feeling that I want to do this more than one time.
Wonderful. Thank you, Magnus, for your time. And
thank you, Adam. Thank you, Adam. Thank you for listening.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for my English. Sometimes I wish I had some more words.
You have more than enough words. Yeah, something comes through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.